Right, 10 Dorset gate, approximately 6 feet high. It's slumped a bit, but just here you can see where a badger probably has gone through. He's just barged in, broken through the plastic, left a hole, and that's big enough for a muntjac to get in, and possibly a roe deer if it's keen. So one of the things we'll need to do is to repair that hole if we want to keep deer to this area here. And the way I do things, I would very much like to do that, because the plan we're working on this site is to restore this 50-plus-year-old derelict Hazel Coppice back to rotation. Right, pop through the Dorset gate. This has gone over. So we'll come back and knock that in a bit further. Should we just try that? That's probably fixed it, sort of. This has come down. And we've got deer browsing on all of these. You can see it, they're like little cushions, rounded. If we look at them closely, see they're cut off like secateurs. It's fairly light as deer browsing goes, but it's enough to knock this coppice back. And being seeker deer, they can take off fairly high stems, usually up to about sort of this height, which is 1.2, 1.3, 1.5 metres. But they can do the same thing as cattle can do. That's bend these bigger stems over and take the really nice nutritious growing tip out the top. And all these have suffered the same way. I'm 5'8", that's my eye level. And that's about eye level, so that's about 5'6", 5'7". They've taken those. And through here, all this dogwood has been chomped. And over here, this has all been chewed. This is little elm suckers. Before Dutch elm disease, there would have been big elm trees in the hedge. That's an ash. These are mostly hawthorns. There's another ash there. But since Dutch elm disease, big elms in the British countryside have been very few and far between. The elm has mostly been subsisting as growth from root systems, i.e. suckers. Where there's deer browsing, it can't get away, but where it's left alone, it can. This has all been chomped. So this year's dead hedge, which is over there, hasn't worked, whereas last year's dead hedge, which has had another year to collapse, don't forget, so that was higher than it is now, worked very, very well. You can see all the hazel sticking over the top of it. Okay, this is hazel, which has had 3 growing seasons. And this has been deer fenced against deer, or rather dead hedge against deer, and the dead hedging's worked. There's been no deer damage, either to the hazel or to these things, which are 3, possibly 4-year-old ash seedlings. See, no rubbing of antlers. This is a sunshoot that wasn't cut, so you've got this multi-stems jobby, and these ones here are what you're aiming for. As the things get taller still, because these are 3 growing seasons old, 3 summers, 3 years, they've gone up like that. As they get older still, they'll lose some of the bottom branches, and by year 7 they'll be ripe for cutting and ripe for commercial use. Or I prefer there to be more hazel stalls in here, but as these get bigger, so they'll spread out. Cut them again, they'll shoot from the edges and get bigger, and the spacing will close up and the regrowth be correspondingly better. You've got a leavening of other species like this hawthorn, see the leaves, as well as the ash. And there's little tiny cherries in here. And there's a primrose, look, that's carried on throughout the summer. And these here have been layered, and this winter will be the time to cut these off. See if the layering is successful. So you can see it's running along here. Cut it there, cut the top off. Cut the top off that other one, cut it away from the base, and see if it's actually grown. This one actually looks fairly promising. See all these shoots? If you had deer browsing in here, they'd have eaten all these and, what's the word, discouraged it. This area here is 2 growing seasons old. And you can see these ones in there are 4 growing seasons old. But they're close to the canopy of that multi-trunked sycamore stall and the trees along the edge. That was the first area I cut, so they'd be 5 years old. Sorry, 5 years old. You can see how well these are grown, and this is what you're looking for. These are nuisance species, good for nature conservation, but because they're prickly and there are quite a lot of them just in this patch, bit of a pain in the boy bits if you're actually cutting coppice. Because to make a living cutting coppice, you've got to be as efficient as possible. That's euphorbia, and we'll come back here in the spring and see what wildflowers we got. Despite the coverage of ivy, we should have quite a lot. Although down the bottom, the coppice is older and is starting to close over. See how close these are to each other? Getting more shading, and until year 7 when you recut, after which you'll get a flush of wildflowers. The wildflowers will decline in terms of their show. So we'll end it there. We're running out of battery, we're cold, or it's cold, I'm cold. So that's an idea of how coppicing responds and how the ground flora responds if you can fence against deer. And there are a lot of deer in this wood. There's roe, and there's a lot of sika and possibly muntjac. Sika and muntjac, of course, are non-natives, fairly recently introduced in terms of the British countryside. And having a huge effect on woodlands in this area. And we've also got roe. Oh, ah. Right, finish with this mullein, which has produced seeds and is now sort of rotting, but there will be still little insects in there overwintering. Right, hope that was useful and interesting. I'm going home for my tea before it gets dark.